but I will do my best to be a good president for the next year. I know Ash did a good job, and I know she's very grateful to be handing off that role. And I imagine I will be in a year as well. Okay, we have two speakers today. Mark is going to evaluate Jay, and Mark's going to do this after Jay's speech, Ron. So just be aware of that when you're with your Toastmaster role. Mark, do you know what you're going to be evaluating Jay for?
His speech.
Excellent, Mark.
Unfortunately, there's nothing in the agenda other than the title, so I don't know if somebody knows what his path level project is and could get me a copy of the evaluation. I'll fill it out later, but I typically start with a blank sheet of paper and just write things down to give an oral evaluation. That way you get something a little bit different rather than exacerbating the confusion of the meeting by trying to read an evaluation form.
Jay, do you know what pathway and speech you're giving? I might be able to find that online or in one of my saved files.
Do you have any particular project that you're working on?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so no project specified.
The general evaluation, it sounds like.
Okay.
Default form.
And then I was originally going to evaluate Jessica's speech. My other meeting is kind of winding down. Meg, do you want to evaluate Jessica's speech in my place?
Sure. Do I have to think like you do?
What does that mean?
Can I plead the fifth on that one?
Sure. Okay, so Meg will be evaluating Jessica. Jessica, I don't know if you have a specific evaluation for Meg or not.
I'm using the Connect with Your Audience project. It's not a perfect match because it's supposed to be an unfamiliar topic. I mean, I know my topic is familiar to some and unfamiliar to others, but it was the closest match I could find. So it's the Connect with Your Audience project, and Meg will be evaluating me on my ability to explain something that is new or unusual for audience members. Which again, this will be new and unusual for some, but not all.
Okay. Very good. And then I have the rest of my team. Jay is going to be timer. Jay, if you can just go over your timing role really quick. Are there any guests in the audience tonight?
Yeah, I think for the topic, for the it will be like 6 minutes for the starting with 6 minutes and 8 minutes, 6 to 12 minutes. So for the general speakers, and after 6 minutes, I'll be having up the yellow light for the mid section, and the red will be before 1 minute of the end interval. We'll be having the red light. So I'll be marking all the timing for each and every one actually.
Okay, do you need somebody to time yourself for your speech?
Yeah, I have my timer. I'll time myself.
Okay. Yeah, just clarify with Jessica when she wants the lights for her speech. It would usually be like 10, 12 and a half, and 15, unless you want something different, Jessica.
Yeah, I think Jessica. Yeah.
10, 12,
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay, Heather is going to be our all-counter grammarian. Heather, do you want to briefly go over what you'll be looking at?
That was an example, not a slip. Well, yes, it was. As the all counter, I will be listening for crutch words or filler words. And as well as overused words such as and, well, but, and so. And as grammarian, I will be paying attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. And I'll take note of any improper language, as any outstanding, as well as any outstanding quotes, sayings, or thoughts. And that is my role.
All right, thank you, Heather. Then we have a ballot counter. Let me check who this is really quick.
That's me, it's me.
Oh,
I'm the ballot
Jessica.
counter, Eternal ballot counter. We actually have ballots in the room today. So I will be collecting ballots from the people in the room and collecting private messages from the people online. Last week, the people in the room did an excellent job, and the people online did a less excellent job of submitting their ballots. So I challenge the people online to also submit your ballots at the end of the meeting so I can tally the votes.
All right, thank you, Jessica. I'll give my report on the end of the meeting after all our reports are done. And with that, I'll return control to our Toastmaster.
Ron, your phone is ringing. Is that
Thank
on
you.
purpose or is that really happening?
Thank you, Mr. I will now ignore my phone, which of course, normally I would have turned off because I.
This is the
respect
Social Security
speakers at all
Administration warning
times
you,
during the
Mr.
meeting. And now I will introduce our first speaker on the topic of climate change. Let me introduce Jay.
Thank you, Toastmaster and fellow friends. The topic for discussion today is about climate change, and I think this is the apt topic for the climate which we are into, where we are facing a hard, I would say, a hotter summer during our west, and we are seeing a wet rains over the south. So, how we came into this situation in which if you look at what is happening up in the west on the Lake Mead, it is one of the, it is 30% full, and it is one of the worst drought in like 20 years. So, and so, sorry, to begin with that one. So the climate change is happening for many, many years, but it got exacerbated for the last couple of decades, in which take an example that our sea level as such due to climate change only increased like a 0.7 inch for the last whole century. But we are looking at for the last 20 years, it has been increasing like a 1/6 every year. And the reason we are getting the hot climate and the irrational weather we are facing it because of the climate change, and the main reason for the climate change is they call it as a greenhouse gases. So the greenhouse gases are nothing but the major pollutant, which is one of the component of greenhouse gases is called CO2, carbon dioxide, and that is mostly generated from the coal plants or the automobiles, everything which we are using it, that contribute close to like 80% of the climate change greenhouse gases. And the remaining 10% of that one comes from methane, which is nothing but the cows, they normally burp and they generate a lot of methane, and that generates 10%. And the remaining 6% is of industrial wastes and other things which contribute to the CO2. So what is greenhouse gases? I'll just try to explain in a very simple manner. The thing here is that this carbon dioxide, when it's greenhouse gases, they don't get dissolved in the atmosphere. What they normally do here is that they go to the top and they try to form like a cover around our globe, our Earth. And due to that one, most of the heat never get evaporates. So the heat gets accumulated in the whole sphere, I would say, around our Earth, and it keeps on increasing our temperature. And due to the increase in the temperature, we are seeing the ice field, the glaciers are melting, and due to which they are melting out, we are seeing the sea levels are increasing. And when the sea levels are increasing, we could see that changes the ocean current. So why we talk about ocean current? Because most of the climate is dependent upon the ocean currents. So we have two currents in which we have a hot current which picks up from the heat air from the equator and go to the north polar side, and the cold current which brings up the cold air from the polar and brings it to the southern hemisphere. When we have our current get messed up with all those things, what happens is that our summer get hotter and hotter every year, and our season get messed up. And due to that one, we are seeing sometimes the rain, even in Texas or in Florida, we are receiving rain which are what we receive in 1 year gets in 1 day or few hours. So all these things are because of the climate change actually. So, and the main important thing here is that most of our cities are 40% of our population lives in cities, and almost like 8 to 10 largest cities are near the ocean. And if it keeps on deteriorating like this, what is happening up now, we might be having a situation in which it is going to affect the cities for the destruction actually. So sorry, from here, how we can, I'm just going to the solution about how we can reduce the climate change. I mean, the reducing the climate change here is that we need to decrease our usage of our carbon dioxide. So decrease the usage of carbon dioxide means the major 80% we talk about the CO2. So we need to reduce the usage of coal plants. We need to reduce the usage of our gasoline, and that is happening actually. I can say here that like 20 years back, we were having almost like 1,000 coal plants in US, and now we are in 250. So 1/4 we have reduced it. But it is not that we only can change our planet. It has to be done by all over the planet, I would say. And but China has 1,500 coal plants and all. So the biggest polluter now here is like a China, which is like a 10 metric tons, and we are at 6, and then India comes at 2.5. So every country has its own share of reducing that one. So one way is to reduce the CO2 is to not using the coal for your power generation, and instead uses the solar, wind, or the renewables for our energy needs. And apart from that one, the other thing is that if we want to reduce our climate change to that one, they estimate that one we need to plant almost like a 1.2 trillion trees all over the barren lands, which is not possible. But there are alternate solutions. They say that one that if you have they call it the sea algae, which it grows in the sea, and it tries to absorb your carbon dioxide, and it can be used as a manure and even as a biomass. So there are solutions which can be done to address that one, to fix that one. So these are the things which are still on the field. But the whole thing about here is that we talk about the Paris Climate Accord, but those are just it is not. Nobody monitors everyone about what they are doing on the climate change. It's just a need in which they say that one we are going to reduce it, but no, there is no hardcore rules that one you should follow the climate change actually. So it all falls upon ourselves to fix it, because even in a country we have one party which doesn't believe in climate change. There's another party who is not serious about it. So and finally it falls upon the Gen Zs or Greta Thunberg, who is 17 years old, and she's talking about climate change. So I would say that one, to fix this one, everyone's responsibility to take care of it actually. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Let's all take a minute to write messages supporting Jay and giving him advice with his speech. Thank you, Jessica, for the introduction. I believe after the incredibly cool temperatures we experienced today, that the climate change we'll be experiencing through the week will sound like sorry, that I meant to say and I would like to clarify whether Mark will be leaving the meeting early and needs to do his evaluation before the table topics, but after the second speaker would be my guess.
I think we're going to have him do it now if he's ready.
Put it in mind.
I think so. Did you want to do your evaluation now, Mark?
I can. Fortunately, some of the problems with what it's having with the internet in the recent past have been repaired, at least to some extent.
I will introduce the general evaluator to introduce the evaluator number one, and because of the nature of the meeting, I will vacate the lectern so that I can get to my important work of disrupting Mark's evaluation.
Eamon may be paying attention to his other meeting and not even know that he's supposed to be doing something right now. Well, Ron was trying to get Eamon as general evaluator to introduce Mark. I don't think Eamon has paid attention, so I think Mark should just go.
Yeah, I'm not paying attention, so here's Mark, evaluating Jay.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Fellow Toastmasters, designated disruptor, and especially Jay. Jay, you picked a good topic. It's a big topic, but you managed to bring it across in a very timely manner. I can tell from your presentation that this is a topic you're very passionate about. I think when I was a lot younger, I would have been a little more passionate about it myself. Although back in the Ice Age, we didn't worry about global warming. You had some really good information for us, pointing out that things like greenhouse gases, ocean currents, that was one that I hadn't thought of, although there's parts of Northern Europe that are only habitable because of ocean currents, including the British Isles and parts of Scandinavia because of the Gulf Stream that brings the warm water up and keeps the climate almost habitable up there. You also talked about carbon dioxide, which, assuming we can get off a little bit of our dependence on carbon dioxide producing things. Now, I have to tell you, for the past 16 months, I have not been contributing a whole lot of carbon dioxide by driving around. That's one of the benefits of our current situation, I believe. Now, a couple of things you might want to think about. Number one, you gave us a lot of facts, and it might have been useful if you had prepared a little fact sheet. You could hand it out to the people who are there, and you could have it scanned and emailed out to the people who aren't there, because it's hard to remember some of the things, like what's the reduction in carbon dioxide that we really need to do? What was that reduction in coal-powered power plants, electrical generating stations? Sounded like it was about 75% down, but where was that? Things like that, it's a little easier for us to remember on an important topic if you give us something to hang on to. I think one of the things I noticed is you tended to wander a little bit between topics, between subtopics. I think you might do a little better if you take the time ahead of time to write out your speech, not so you can read it, but so that you can get your thoughts in order a little bit as you're doing a presentation. When I was getting started, I not only wrote out my speeches ahead of time, I went back afterwards and rewrote them based on the evaluations I got. That can always be a helpful thing to help you get things in mind. If you have a way you would prefer to do it, some people like to write them out. Some people like to work with the little audio devices we have, record it and listen to it. I think that'll help make you a much better and more polished speaker. One last thing I would like to have you do, and I would like to have all of our speakers do this, is to prepare an introduction for the Toastmaster. If nothing else, it'll keep him from being disruptive because he has to read the introduction instead of clicking his things. With that in mind, I enjoyed the speech. I enjoyed your presentation. I thought you did a good job with it. And I definitely look forward to hearing and seeing some more of you at times in person. Mr. General Evaluator.
Mr. Toastmaster.
That's Mr. Designated Disruptor for you, Eamon, not Mr. Toastmaster. Mr. Designated Disruptor.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. That's what I would be saying if I were applauding a speech. Tonight, Jessica continues her explanation of pathways by showing us how to navigate pathways online. Please welcome and feel free to exacerbate and further interrupt with questions, Jessica.
I thought you were gonna talk about something interesting.
Well, I'm talking about something essential. I'm also going to move essential to those who want to earn work, I suppose. I'm also gonna move my camera so you can actually see me while I'm sitting here and presenting. Yes, thank you, Ron, and welcome to Navigating Pathways. This is a continuation of the presentation that I started last week, where I showed you how to sign up for Pathways. And today we will be looking at how to navigate Pathways. I took half of the advice I was given last time and shortened my outline down to what we can actually cover. I forgot to take the other half of advice and I still don't have a clicker. So one out of two ain't bad. Today we are going to be talking about how you log on to Basecamp, how you can access your path, how you can access your project, how you navigate a project even when there are weird noises happening, and how you can complete your project. So this is assuming that you have already registered for Pathways and selected a path. If you have questions about that or missed last week's presentation, I encourage you to talk to me after the meeting. In order to get to your online path, this is just for online, you will have to first log into Basecamp. Again, if you did the printed materials, this won't be applicable to you because you'll have manuals, but for those who do it online, You'll need to start by going to toastmasters.org, clicking on Pathways, and clicking Go to Basecamp. After you've gotten there, you should see a screen with a big red button that says Go to Basecamp. If you are in more than one club, you will also have a drop down to select your club. You don't really need to worry about that. It doesn't really matter which club you select. Once you log in and click that Go to Basecamp button, you will see a screen that looks a little something like this with a number of other buttons there for you to click on. And you want to access your path. So you will click on the button that says Paths and Learning, Education Transcript. If you are an overachiever like me and are enrolled in multiple paths at once, you will see multiple paths listed. Most of you will probably only see one or maybe two, but whichever path you want to launch, you will click on the Open Curriculum button next to it. Yes, Meg.
What if you start the path and then life changes and you really don't have any interest in said path? You still have to follow it through.
If you do not want to work in the path that you have chosen,
And it's more than 30 days.
yes, if it's more than 30 days, then you will need to select a new path and pay $20 for it. Or the alternative, I would say, if you don't want to pay another $20, you could accept that you may not actually complete the actual levels and just work on the electives, because every path has a number of electives that you could choose to work on. So if you don't like your path at all, then you'll need to either select a new path or just accept that you won't be completing that path and just do the electives but not get the full credit for the path. I don't know if that means Ron approves or disapproves of this, but either way, we will continue on. So you will click on Open Curriculum, and that will take you to the actual content of your path. Now you want to actually access a project within your path. Every path is made up of levels, and every level is made up of projects. To activate and access the content for a project online, it is a two-step process. You get to first click Activate, and then the button will change to Launch. And when you click Launch, that is when you can actually get to the content of your project. And this, once you've finally gotten here, this is the part that I think is actually the most helpful and useful, because this gives you all kinds of information and tips about how to improve your presentations and how to focus on different things. Some of the feedback that Mark gave for Jay today is also covered in some of these projects. So these can be very valuable resources for anyone wanting to improve their presentation skills. Let's talk about how we navigate through those projects and get to that valuable content. The first time, there's no wicked witches involved. It's relatively easy, though there are certainly some evil little tricks that you will encounter that you will have to deal with. That's why we're here talking about it. So when you first go to a project, you will see a handy little guide, a navigation guide. It gives you some tips and tricks about how to navigate through the content of the project. And I am going to help guide you through all of those options here today as well. One thing you should be aware of is the drop down at the bottom of the screen that will allow you to jump from section to section. So if you are an experienced speaker, you can open that up and go to the sections that interest you. If you are a less experienced speaker or this is your first time through, then I would recommend that you instead go through things in order, but you can still click that drop down and see the different sections of the project. And these are the same sections that you will have if you do the printed path and get the content in a manual. These are essentially section headings. The first thing you will do when you click on the right arrow button, you'll be a little gray arrow that you click on. That will take you to your assessed skills before, and that will allow you to take a pre-assessment that will help you evaluate your current skill level and see which things you most want to focus on improving as you work through this project. As you go through this assessment, you need to make sure that you click the next button after you answer each question. Do not click the right arrow, as tempting as it may be. You need to click the next button first, get through all of the next button content. Then you will see a button that says submit. And then finally, once you've done that, you have completed your pre-assessment and you can click the arrow over to proceed with the project. This pre-assessment is not strictly required. It's designed to help you see where you're at and work on improving your skills. Have very good communication skills and will greatly benefit from the Pathways program. Thank you, Ron. There are a number of other resources that you may find throughout the content of your path. In this particular project, there is, for example, a research worksheet that you can download that will help you in conducting your research. That will open in a new browser tab. And then if you want to go back to your main content, you will have to click back to the previous tab. And again, that gray arrow, you can click when you're ready to move on. Always look for these maroon buttons. Always click the maroon buttons before you click the right arrow. That will show you more content, more information. Literally says more in this example. It says all kinds of great content about how to research a topic. Here's another example with some back and next buttons. You can navigate through different subsections on how to research a topic. You know that you've seen it all when that next button is grayed out, and then you can click the gray arrow. And here's yet another example of what content might look like. Again, those maroon buttons, those are clickable, so you can click on credibility to learn more about the importance of credibility. There are also quizzes that you can take to test your understanding. Here's a quiz about different organizational structures for your speech so that you can help figure out how best to organize the different points of your speech. You'll click on one of those blue buttons. If you're wrong, it will tell you you were wrong, and it will ask you the question again later. When you're right, it will tell you that you're right. And when you have gotten all of the questions right, then you can finally click that gray button to move on. Eventually, you will get to this screen that says review and apply, or you'll see that in your manual. That's how you know that you've gotten through all of the educational content for the project and you're ready to do the doing to actually prepare and give your speech. So now how do you actually go about completing the requirements for the project? You've done the learning, now you want to apply that learning and complete the project. When you go and click the right arrow from that review and apply screen, you will see a screen that says complete your assignment. And there will be a project checklist you can click on that will give you a detailed list of everything that you should do to complete the project. This is very detailed. As you can see here, step one is to select a topic, which might just be a given for some people, but it gives you detailed step-by-step. Make sure you do all of these things as you're preparing for your speech and as you give your speech. Once you've looked at everything on this complete your assignment page, you can click the right arrow and go on to your evaluation. This is where you find that evaluation resource. So when Eamon was asking you today, Jay, about whether you had an evaluation, if you had gone into Pathways and gone through a project, you'd eventually get to this screen. You'd be able to click that evaluation resource button, and that's where you would find that evaluation guide that Eamon was asking about. That's where I found the guide that I gave to Meg that she'll be using to evaluate my speech. You can download and save it, and then you can have it stored on your local computer. Yes, Meg?
Okay, so suppose you foolishly start, well, suppose you start a project and you go through the icebreakers and you go through the research and you go through a couple other things. And then life happens and
Yes.
exactly. And in my case, it was exactly that. And the next thing you know, everything in your life is like So you don't have any records. Is there any way you get credit for like those 5 or 6 speeches you did?
Yes, as long as you gave the speeches and someone evaluated you. And there's, like, the records would be someone evaluated you, like either you have a written evaluation, or this person would remember evaluating you, or it would have been on a past agenda, like any of those things will work.
So what if you have no paperwork to prove it and just your memory?
As long as there is someone else other than you that also remembers it, I would say that that's okay. Like, as your VPE, I will allow someone else to vouch for you to say, yes, I remember Meg gave this speech. I remember she
For
got
instance,
evaluated.
I made a Santa Claus speech and Robin evaluated,
Mhm.
Robin's telephone. Well, yes, exactly.
So if Robin remembers that, and we can get Robin to say, oh, yes, I remember evaluating
Well, you
Meg.
gave me a very nice long written evaluation on your comments too. It was very nice. But it was like the history of Santa Claus.
Okay, yeah, I'll be honest, I don't remember that speech, so I unfortunately can't vouch for you.
Right.
But if someone remembered you giving that speech, then yes, you could still get credit.
Okay.
And I'm about to show you how you could go online and
I
mark it
can
off
share
as
this with-
something that you have done.
Okay.
So you give your speech, you get the evaluation done, you delivered your speech to your club, you get your evaluation filled out, you may or may not still have your evaluation form, and then you go back into Pathways, and this is where you complete your project. So this is where you don't necessarily need the written evaluation form. You just need some sort of proof or evidence that you did it, whether that is the written form, whether that's somebody else remembering and vouching for you, like some sort of indication that's outside your own head is all I would ask for.
Okay.
And then you can go back into Pathways, launch the project again. You're on your evaluation screen that you were on before. You click the right gray arrow. And now you have this beautiful post-assessment that you can take. It's just the same as the pre-assessment, all the same buttons. And then once you've done that, once you've done the post-assessment and clicked that gray over button, then Pathways has decided that you have completed the project. So Pathways does not, yes, the round is over, you've done it. Pathways does not ask you for your evaluation form. It doesn't ask you to say who evaluated you. It doesn't do any of that.
And
It
you
just
don't have
asks you
help.
to take that post-assessment and then you are done. Now your VPE may end up verifying with you that you actually completed the project when they sign off the level, but that is beyond the content of this speech, and that is what we will talk about next time. So today we talked about logging in, accessing your path, accessing the project, navigating and completing a project. And I'm done just about on time despite the numerous interruptions from Ron. Thank you, Ron, for your unhelpful interruptions. Thank you, Meg, for your helpful questions. And if anyone else has more questions, feel free to ask me after the meeting. Oh, if you want to. It is a disruptive meeting, so.
One question is that when you take the pathway for the speech preparation and all, you need to complete with the speech for you to get the teacher or.
What you should do is give the speech and then go back in and do the post-assessment, and then that will mark it off in the system. There have been situations where people accidentally take the post-assessment before they've actually given the speech. And so it marks it off as complete even before you've done it. Because again, the system, it doesn't ask you for your evaluation or anything. It just considers you done as soon as you've taken that post-assessment. But my job as VP Education, when I see that you've done the post-assessment, to make sure you've actually given the speech. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
When's turnaround time on mail?
On mail? Oh, that's a great question. Robin would know a lot more about that. It's not as good as I'd like it to be. It can take, well, back before COVID even, it took a couple weeks to get the next set of manuals. And I'm imagining it's even worse now that they're not actually working in their offices.
So you need to send something to the postmaster.
Only if you want to do the printed manuals. If you want to do it online, then it's completely, everything is online. But if you don't have a computer or you don't want to use the computer, then you get the manuals mailed to you, and then you fill out a paper form, and then you send the paper form into Toastmasters. They get the paper form, and then they send you the new manuals. So it takes at least a couple days for them to get the form. It takes probably about a week for them to process the form, and then however long to actually send you your new set of manuals. So you're probably looking at a couple weeks each time to get your next round of manuals. Yeah, I wish it was faster. I wish they would just send you all the manuals you need all at once, but.
That's too easy. I just asked. What turnaround time, what meal turnaround time?
Not to interrupt, but I will now turn control of the meeting over to our table topics master, Donna Rosales.
Because I'm not going to show us something. Wing it. What my doctor does, he says, only elbows.
But where has that elbow been?
He never asked. So with Toastmasters, it said on my sheet, whatever happened to it, that I was limited to 2 table topics. I can handle that very easily. Question number 1. What is the one thing in your lifetime that you wished you had have done and now it can't be done? Ron? Bingo.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. So many things I wish I had done. When I went bicycling this weekend, I discovered on Thursday that the Papillion days were in effect already, a 4-day weekend. And I decided that I should have taken a helicopter ride. So when I came back Friday, I did take a helicopter ride, which was a great experience. I've always regretted that I didn't somehow become some sort of pilot in my life. Once an instructor had asked me if I was interested in that, someone I just met in a church group, and I said something like, it's like if you saw people running or riding a bicycle or motorcycle and you could only walk, how could you not be interested in doing something like that? A lot of people have joined the military and taken advantage of the trillions of dollars that they spend on cool motorized vehicles like Black Hawk helicopters, submarines, speedboats. Even Colonel Kong got to ride the atomic bomb in Dr. Strangelove because he had the foresight to join the military, go and see strange lands and meet new kinds of people and kill them. Yeah. I know a lot of people were disappointed when they joined the Air Force and never got to fly, but I'm just special. So I'm sure they would have given me my very own little airplane and told me to fly it all over the place and drop some bombs on some wonderful people that I would never get to meet and pay me for it. And I would be retired for 10 years now, and I would be at carnivals giving people biplane rides or something like that. Would be just hilarious to have my flying machine to goof off with rather than just the Funplex go-karts. Madam Table Topics Master.
Did you hear the one about the guy who hired a skywriter to break how do I land?
So you interrupted my chain of thought and I forgot the second question.
Does it have anything to do with?
That's what they do in church. Yours is supposed to twirl up like the horn of a beast.
That was the horn of the beast. He's the beast and that's his horn.
Well, depending on the length of the horn, depends on the volume of the noise.
I think it was the drum more than the noise they get. It's the vibration.
You're vibrating. I can't remember my second question and I don't know what happened to my papers. They may be,
Chico ate it.
Well,
no,
your second question could be what happened to my papers.
oh, I know. I know that,
How I feel.
this is a make up your story. You're standing in line, you've been standing in line for 30 minutes before you get to where you're going. And when you did, it wasn't what you thought it was. Jessica, would you like to tell us what you expected and what you got?
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure.
Yes, here I come.
And we can elbow this one too.
Perfect. I was waiting in line for at least 30 minutes to get into the pet store and get a new fluffy, adorable little black kitten. So cute, so precious. I'd seen him in the window, and this was the first day that the pet store was going to be putting this kitten up for adoption. Unfortunately, even though I got to the pet store early before it opened, there was a line because this kitten was in high demand. And so I waited and waited and waited, and the pet store opened, and the people ahead of me were rushing in, and then I was rushing in. And to my great dismay, I saw this cute little black kitten in the hands of another customer. And I thought, well, I just love cats too much. I cannot go home empty-handed. So I looked, and there was this sort of angry looking striped cat that looked like he had a bit of an attitude problem. And I thought, well, he can't possibly be as bad as he looks. So I took him home and I brought him into the house. And that is how we got our awful, terrible, no good cat, Jack, who pees on the walls and bites people. And I know he is the one that is pooping outside the litter box too. So that's my sad, sad tale. I thought I was gonna get a cute little kitten, and instead I ended up with an angry Jack. Very sad.
Did you try the gingerbread water?
I haven't yet. I thought of that as I was answering my table topic. I was like, Donna gave me that advice and I haven't done it yet.
Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Exactly.
So I've used up my 2 questions. Where's the Toastmaster? And here he comes, yippee.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. One way that we can experience unnecessary noise and disruptions is to walk out the door into any neighborhood, or even not even leave the home. You will hear that when people park their car, they must honk their horns. If you're lucky, they have a loud beep. I had my Subaru in the shop, and Subaru doesn't have a loud horn honk, but they do have a beep that's completely unnecessary. And I can't lock my car while the trunk is still shutting, or it will go crazy on me, or if the door is still open, it gives a series of loud sounds. And I can no longer recommend Subaru products because the new Outback they lent me could not be deactivated noise-wise. It punished me the whole time that I drove it for several weeks. And I hated it because of the disruptive noises. We've all had the experience of sitting in an outdoor dining area and have a full-size pickup truck pull 5 feet from our heads. Loud horn honk or 3 that almost knocks you out of your seat. And the people are just walking along with their clicker like they don't even realize what they just did, and they didn't hear it themselves, just like the people munching popcorn in the theater have no disruptions, and they are into the story. They're completely wrapped up in the plot of this movie, but unfortunately, you will never experience that movie now that you've been disrupted. And I see that Eamon does not look prepared, so I will disrupt his work and call on him as general evaluator. Eamon Malone.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sort of.
Okay. All right, so Mark already evaluated Jay. I will now call on Meg to evaluate Jessica's speech.
Hello, Toastmasters. He doesn't like things in his ears. I don't like peripheral vision problems. I used to have terrible migraines. All right. Now, let me just say one thing about Jessica's speech. Jessica is supposed to connect with the audience. These are, I have 2 little sketches of the audience's initial reaction to her speech. Now, you probably can't see them. We have one going, and we have another, this one, when you were getting into the details of something about online, you gotta get the body language, mouth covered. Okay. So you are dealing with not the most responsive audience. The other problem was that as you were talking to the screen, you weren't talking to us. So there wasn't much eye contact during that portion of the program. However, when you started actually conversing with us, that all changed. Your hand language, because you didn't do much whole body, but you did have hand gestures. Your hand gestures increased, your eye contact increased, your vocal variety improved, just because you were now answering questions. So your comfort level rose as you actually contacted other people, which is a real important thing to know. So maybe you're one of the people who would be better at paraphrasing than, the direct reading. Your information was all very accurate, but let's face it, drier than instant powdered toast information can only be so interesting. You did an excellent job. You got Donna to actually turn her head and listen to you. You got Jay to actually smile after a while. These, I think, are conquests because this is difficult information to get through. As far as, so what you excelled at, explanation to audience questions. What you need to work out, eye contact when you've got that screen going. Exactly.
Gosh.
And my challenge to you is do this speech as a game show. I don't know which game show, whether it's, one where every audience member is a different personality. I don't know. We could have Donna as Zsa Zsa Gabor or something like that, but everybody being a different personality. That's not impossible. Or you could have, it has to be done in 60 seconds, like a table topic or things like that, but make it silly, you know, of course, that is my go-to, but I still think that silliness, when you're dealing with something that is worse than instant powdered toast, will help the cohorts of carbonized carbohydrates excel. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Meg. Now, Ron, sorry, it's not your turn. I would like to ask Jay to do the timers report.
Thank you, Toastmaster. And here is the timing scheduled for everyone. The first topic for climate change, I took like 8 minutes and 12 seconds. And the response from Mark was like 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And afterwards, Jessica took 14 minutes and 30 seconds. And the response from Meg for Jessica took like 3 minutes and 35 seconds. And our table topics together, it was like 5 minutes, in which Donna took 2 minutes, and Ron's response was a bit lengthy, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And Jessica's response to second question was 1 minute and 75 seconds. So I think we were within our time limit, and
How long did you have?
I could not able to that. Yeah.
Well, man, we should have had a meow counter. What a great idea. Oh, no, next time.
And that's it for me. Back to table topics. Sorry, so far.
Thank you, Jay. Next, as a reminder, please vote for best evaluator between Mark and Jessica. Also vote for best speaker between Jay and Jessica, and then best table topic between And I'd ask Heather for her report right now. Heather, do you have the grammarian odd-counter report?
Yes, I do. Everyone did pretty well with the filler words. There were some ahs, ums, and so's out there. Otherwise, it was a pretty good night as far as filler words. We only had 2 that I heard. 2 people use the word of the day. That would be Mark and Ron. Ron used it twice. And that is my report.
Yeah, I think Jay used it as well.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to exacerbate anything, but on the other hand, I had it written down.
Thank you, Heather. As for my report, I think the meeting went well. You'd already gone through officer elections by the time I logged on about 6:05, so very well done doing that in a timely manner. Ron did a good job. Sorry I wasn't given my interrupting speech, which would have made it more appropriate, but a lot of fun. The speakers remained engaging despite the length of their speech, and as Meg said, kind of the dryness of Jessica's topic, but she made it interesting. Good table topics from Donna. Appreciate her limiting it to 2, and we'll get out of here on time. So good job, everybody. And I'll return control to the Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, for your comments on our meeting. And now I will complain some more about disruptions. I feel we didn't disrupt the meeting as much as we probably could have, so we were able to maintain an unreasonably high level of concentration on the tasks at hand. But we can always do better next time. And now I will return control to the presiding officer, Jessica.
Stall for 1 second while I count these add these online votes.
I'll find something to do.
Short joke.
We don't have a vote for me, he stepped away, so I will consider him abstain. And Jay, I didn't see a vote for evaluator from you. I assume these were your votes. You wrote a name on Table Topics Master and you wrote a name on speaker.
I missed 7 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Would you like to vote for best evaluator?
I think you say Mark.
Mark, okay. You broke the tie. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Our winners in the various categories. In table topics, the winner was me. People like my made up cat story. That's very good. For evaluator, the winner was Mark, as I indicated by 1 vote. And for speaker, the winner was overwhelmingly Jay. Congratulations, Jay. I have learned that dry topics may not do as well in the best speaker, and very knowledgeable, informative speeches presented with passion do very well. So thank you, Jay.
And these are presents from Steve. What they are bubble makers. So if I had the knowledge on how to work them, which is
Come
the first
without
thing.
instructions?
It came without instructions and it came with 1 set of batteries. But it basically has little wands inside and you blow bubbles.
Yeah.
So that would have been considered really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But it would also probably not throw the people doing.
Yeah, I would not do that inside. We can do that outside. I'm sure those are intended for Dundee